Welcome, everyone, to Anomaly Detected. Welcome into the super secret spy satellite. I'm your host, Jack Valley. Joining me is your other host, Rick Nedfern. Beaming in through super secure encrypted channels. I'm assuming, right? Are we secure here, Rick?
The most
secure.
Absolutely. This is
the super
secure
secret
location.
channel that we're using to share this with everyone. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, dude. So we're gonna get into some high strangeness today. We're doing a deep dive into the Bermuda Triangle. Right?
Getting wet.
Getting wet. I know you like to get wet, Rick. We were talking about doing this. We've connected in the past over a love of, well, aliens, high strangeness, paranormal, extraterrestrial, everything in between. The metaphysical. But yeah, so we were talking about doing this, going over a topic, and what you mentioned first, like, let's go over something I'm familiar with for our first show together. What made you bring this up?
Just like the fogs in the Bermuda Triangle. Honestly, like, as you can kind of see, like, I got a bunch of books, and so it was almost the fact that I've had these books for a couple years, Beyond the Bermuda
Books.
Triangle and The Fog, both by Bruce Gernon, the experienced guy, and Rob McGregor. So yeah, got a couple books here, and it was just something that I've been, thinking about, and just he's got some interesting theories that are fun to think about and see what
Man, I
see what they
love
all come together. So yeah, it was kind of
I love thinking and talking about all this. So I'm glad to share it with you. And it's a
yeah.
lot more interesting than the average stuff we could be talking about this day and age. It's it's a lot more intriguing to me. And so, like, that right there, you were like, I'm familiar with The Fog, not John Carpenter's The Fog, but you're familiar with these topics. And I've always been intrigued by the Bermuda Triangle, sort of what's all the fuss about. Like, it's something you hear about. It's a major, like, cultural reference point. Everyone knows that the Bermuda Triangle exists, but why? Like, is there any meat on those bones? Why should I be interested in it? Right?
Yeah. And it's, to me, it's kind of one of those things, like they made a joke about the quicksand, that was around every corner in the cartoons and stuff, I think, when we were growing up. I feel like the Bermuda Triangle, they were still playing a bunch of those, like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe and all these kind of different shows about the stuff, and
In Search of with Spock,
In Search of.
Leonard
I got
Nimoy.
So I got sucked in at a young age, and then it kind of seemed to like disappear for a while. But then that was kind of when I did read these books, a good few years back now. Kind of brought up all those kind of like, huh, what is
And
going on with that?
to add to that, I'm like, okay, I better read something and not just wander into this discussion. So I picked up a book called Into the Bermuda Triangle: Pursuing the Truth Behind the World's Greatest Mystery by Gian Quasar. And yeah, it was perfect for me. I'm like, again, what's the big deal with the Bermuda Triangle? Should I care? Is it just a Looney Tunes joke or something from Unsolved Mysteries, Looking great today, by the way, Rick.
Thanks. I thought we were getting tropical with it, so I'd wear my Hawaiian t-shirt.
Perfect.
Actually, I think it is really vintage. That's why it's got these cool.
It's too
Colors.
cool for me, dude. I can't handle it. It's like you pull it off. I don't know if I could. Um, I love your office too, by the way. We got some things poking into the frame. But
Oh yeah.
so back to the Bermuda Triangle. It's a
Mm-hmm.
triangle, but is it really? No, it is. It's a triangle. But so again, the book I'm covering, Into the Bermuda Triangle by Gian Quasar. He has a nice little breakdown. He says the Bermuda Triangle is a triangle of sea extending southwest from the island of Bermuda to Miami and through southern Florida to Key West, then encompassing the Bahamas. It extends southeast through Puerto Rico to as far as 15 degrees north latitude, and then from the northward back to Bermuda. But like anyone who's read into it could tell you, it's kind of up to interpretation as well. Other people have different definitions of the boundaries of the Bermuda Triangle, but that's the general area we're talking about. Why a
Yeah.
triangle?
Well, and some of the stuff I'm gonna go into shows it can happen anywhere, but we'll get
Yes.
into that.
And the term triangle, it dates only to 1952 when writer George X. Sand's Sea Mystery at Our Back Door appeared in Fate magazine, the great Fate magazine, dude. In it, he outlined its most enduring shape between Bermuda, southern Florida, and Puerto Rico. And then the name actually, the actual name Bermuda Triangle dates to 1964 when Vincent Gaddis added it to the colloquial term deadly triangle in an article for Argosy magazine, which was titled The Deadly Bermuda Triangle. So that the name of that article by Vincent Gaddis is the first instance of it being referred to as the Bermuda Triangle. Little history
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Nice.
In the end, what matters is that this is where far more aircraft and ships have disappeared throughout recorded maritime history than in any other region of the world's oceans. Any other region. That's sort of like what got me onto this book was like, okay, yeah, planes disappear, I guess. Maybe ships disappear, but why is this region different? Why is it significant? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And uh so
To
this,
figure it
by
out.
the way, this book was published in 2003. Just putting that out there. So
Okay.
the most up-to-date information from 23 years ago. Now, I did just see that Gian Quasar published a follow-up in 2017. So if this, if there's enough interest here, if people care, maybe we'll cover the follow-up at some point. Maybe I'll dig into that too. But 2003, we had technology and stuff by then. Some amount of technology, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I remember.
yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was supposed to graduate high school that year. Supposed to.
Yeah.
um, but yes, so writing this in 2003, he said, in the last 25 years alone, some 75 aircraft and hundreds of pleasure yachts have inexplicably vanished, despite the fact that GPS is now extensively used, that communication systems are powerful and reliable, and that searches are immediately launched. That's 75 aircraft and hundreds of pleasure yachts in a 25-year period. That's a lot.
That seems like a lot. It seems like a lot, but like, are they tracking it all over? I mean,
That's
how
a
do you
great
truncate that
question.
that this area really has more? I
And
mean, I would imagine not that many yachts are disappearing in every triangle on the corner of the earth, but
every triangle, dude. All of the triangles. We compared triangles. This one's the top triangle.
the
Um,
the the most disappearingest triangle of them all.
yep. But so it's a great question. And first, a lot of this information, most of it that I'm about to cover from the book, was sourced from the National Transportation Safety Board in Washington, D.C., which puts together reports from several federal investigating bureaus, including the U.S. Coast Guard. And just to like address what you mentioned, like, is this the top triangle? It's like, I have it here somewhere, a comparison. But basically, without looking through all of my notes, it's like there are areas like the eastern seaboard, um, and other like high traffic areas, uh, where a lot of accidents happen. There are a lot of wrecks, um, and a lot of disasters. In terms of disappearances, unexplainable, untrackable disappearances, the Bermuda Triangle takes the cake. It is the top triangle in terms of disappearances. And so this is one example of what I'm talking about. Um, let's see. So I have it here that the unusual element seen in many of these cases, it's that comparing it to the waterways off of California and New England with lots of activity.
Mm-hmm.
These disappearances are often not linked to any SOS. There's no emergency beacon. Like for ships, modern ships have an emergency position indicating radio beacon, and that's designed to be activated when it floats free from a sinking ship. And there's also the emergency locator transmitter, which is jettisoned and activated within an aircraft fuselage upon impact. Both continue to transmit their automatic electronic maydays for days, even weeks. Now, while these signals are routinely picked up in other accidents around the globe, like the other places we've talked about, so far not one signal has ever been picked up from those planes and ships known to be carrying them, which vanished in the triangle. So out of all of the disappearances that we're talking about, the ones equipped with those emergency transponders, there have been over 120 craft that have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle without sending those transmissions. That's wild.
That is interesting. That's super interesting. I wonder.
It's crazy. And so the major one that people will go back to, the sort of what ignited the interest in the region in the first place, was Flight 19, the infamous Flight 19. I'm sure you've heard about it, right? Like,
Yeah, I brushed up on it a little bit. They cover it in the book that I
you
covered.
have to. It's synonymous with the Bermuda Triangle. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
where I mentioned those articles, like the Deadly Bermuda Triangle. Those came later, but looking back at Flight 19, that's sort of what sparked like journalistic interest. And so we wouldn't even be talking about it if this hadn't happened, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still what people associate with it. It's like I knew about it before going into it and doing the research. It's what is referenced at the start of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? There's that scene where they recover these Navy planes that have supposedly been deposited in the desert by UFOs. Right? Well, this is what Flight 19 is all about.
Yeah.
It was 5 Navy planes. They had planned a trip of 2 hours and 15 minutes, a routine exercise. The farthest point was 123 miles east over the Bahamas. At cruising speed, they were never more than an hour away from land, right? Fully fueled,
And
right?
yeah, and it was flight 19 because there was already 18 flights of this same path that day.
Exactly, right. And so trouble started at about 3:50 p.m. Picture this, right? Out there. Beautiful Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
The flight leader reported erratic compasses. The pilots, right? Five airplanes, 5 pilots. They compared readings but couldn't agree on a direction. So their compasses going all over the place, right? 2 of the pilots thought they should fly west. They couldn't agree. There was another instructor flying nearby. Could hear the radio transmissions. He contacted them. He believed he knew where they were. He told them which way to head. Now, this topic, right, just Flight 19 in general, has been written about like there's entire books about it. So I'm not going to go through every like blow for blow detail of what happened to Flight 19. One important aspect is the equipment failure, the instruments, the fact that it wasn't consistent across the airplanes, that there were other airplanes in the area flying fine, no
Mm-hmm.
issues. Now, there's more weirdness with that, right? With, you know, interrupted transmissions. The planes reported their IFF signals were on, but none were detected by the bases in the area. Their homing devices failed to pick up Fort Lauderdale's beacon, so they couldn't find the beacon that they were supposed to be tracking back. They were in the range being where they should be able to pick it up. And their transmissions, their radio transmissions, were clear, then faded or vanished, heavy static, drowned out messages, and then they would just pop in with perfect clarity. Like something was interrupting it, even though they were in range. More weirdness with time involved, like the timing of things that happened that day. At 5:55, so this is fully 2 hours after they've departed. The flight should have only taken just over 2 hours. One pilot said, "We may have to ditch any minute." That was picked up.
Mm-hmm.
But then apparently the fuel gauges corrected themselves. Like they should have had plenty of gas at that point, plenty of fuel. But so even the fuel gauge is off. And in the end, right, a large rescue seaplane with 13 crew members was launched towards the flight path to find them when they weren't reporting back in. It was clear there was a problem, right? Had lost contact with them. They launched this, and I never knew this aspect of it. The rescue flight. 13 crew members. After just 20 minutes in the air, it disappeared.
That is wild. That is wild.
20
And
minutes out.
yeah,
Witnesses saw
it's
a massive fireball explosion in this
wow.
case. Radar lost the aircraft. Only an oil slick was ever found. Just a slick. That's so hundreds of planes, dozens of ships searched the area daily. Witnesses reported unexplained lights in the sky. The search crews, described as streaking, dancing, or flares seen across a huge area. Red, green, white. No source ever identified. After weeks of intensive effort, they ended search on December 10th. So that's 6 aircraft, 27 men disappeared that day. 0 physical evidence. Never recovered any debris, any of the victims. Nothing. Gone. So I can see why people like freaked out a little bit. You know, there's a
Yeah.
little bit of interest that you know didn't
Well,
didn't really fade over time.
and they were all pretty experienced airmen, but the leader, who actually seemed like he got maybe even more confused than anybody else, he had just like tons of time flying, and
That's
it was like
right. Just
surprise, like just it seems like anybody without much experience would be able to get themselves out of the situation, but clearly they weren't.
an area many of them, including like you said, the lead pilot had flown before, you know? Um just like it's routine. They should be out, back in, done and dusted. Why was there so
Mm-hmm.
much confusion? That's weird on its own. Like the instruments going haywire is one thing, but 5 pilots couldn't agree on which direction to turn. Like is a clear day. What's the deal there, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the last disappearance in the area. This book, it has a lot. We've talked about Richard Dolan and his books on like the government cover up of UFOs and his like
Mm-hmm.
exhaustive, like detail rich, like compendiums of UFO sightings, right?
Yeah.
The start of this book reminded me of that feel like an exhaustive list of what has gone on in the like 25 to 30 year period covered by the book, right? um but so to his credit though, Gian Quasar does a good job of still making that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But there's I was going through it for this today and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting one. I should definitely mention that. That's intriguing. Oh, I gotta mention this one. I had to cut like half of the stuff that I actually even wanted to mention because there's just
Okay.
so
Yeah.
much. Very dense. So if you pick up the book, get ready for that. Um, but so for one, it wasn't the last military disappearance. In 1947 and 1948, each large aircraft vanished near Bermuda under normal flight conditions. There was a military C-54 that disappeared en route from Bermuda to Florida. Um, there was some debris recovered from that, but again, no distress calls, right? Suddenly, without warning, disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But 7 months later, after that first one, the Star Tiger airliner vanished while approaching Bermuda after routine radio contact, right? And this is what struck me from this one. This is quoting directly from the book, right? Faced with all the evidence, the Board of Investigation soberly addressed the loss of Star Tiger in some of the most eloquent language ever entered into any accident report. And it says, in closing, this report, it may truly be said that no more baffling problem has ever been presented for investigation. In the complete absence of any reliable evidence as to either the nature of the cause of the accident to Star Tiger, the court has not been able to do more than suggest possibilities, none of which reaches the level even of probability. Into all activities which involve the cooperation of man and machine, 2 elements enter a very diverse character. There is the incalculable element of the human equation, dependent on imperfectly known factors, and there is the mechanical element, subject to quite different laws. A breakdown may occur in either separately or in both in conjunction, or some external cause may overwhelm both man and machine. What happened in this case will never be known, and the fate of the Star Tiger must remain an unsolved mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So basically throwing up their hands and saying, we don't know if it was human error, we don't know if it was machine error. It could have been both, but we have
What?
no idea because no
And when was that one again?
evidence. This was 1948. Yeah.
Okay.
So not that
Did they
long
have
after
radar?
Flight 19. They did.
Yeah, they did. They had radar. So I mean, that just is interesting. Like, what happened with that? Did it just blip out, or did it?
It's a great question too. And like when we talk about that, when we talk about something disappearing off a radar, right? You know, probably most people know there's it's a sweep that's happening. There's a circular
Mm-hmm.
sweep of radar, and that's what you're getting is a single sweep of the radar scope. It takes 40 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever caused that plane to disappear would have had to happen in less than 40 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it would have been completely gone at that point. They would pick it up on radar if it was descending, for instance. Like, you know, if it's above water, they'll pick it up on
Mm-hmm.
radar. But in less than 40 seconds, completely disappeared off the scope. God damn.
Pretty interesting.
And so try to make it quick on some of these, but it's like, okay, 3 different flights, right? Big whoop. Military. Maybe the military's fucking up out there. I don't know. Like, right? So this is from the records gone over by the author. Between he says the oldest dates for reliable records from this agency are like 1964. That's when you can like
Mm-hmm.
really start to rely on the record keeping. So between 1964 and 1974, 37 planes vanished. The period from 1974 to 1984 showed that 41 aircraft mysteriously disappeared. That's a lot.
Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot. Well, and you got
1984
to
to
imagine,
94, 32.
and that's just
32.
what's been reported. Like, you got to imagine
True.
that. I mean, based on the area, there is a certain amount of traffic that goes unreported, and
That especially becomes true with seafaring vessels, with ships going through the area,
mm-hmm.
right? Much harder to keep track of. I mean, right, like flight logs, air traffic control is necessary to keep planes in the sky, right? And
Yeah,
not have them collide into each other.
yeah,
So planes are very trackable. Ships on the water, not so much. And when it gets into that part in the book, it talks about how like what he is covering are confirmed disappearances. The number could be way higher. And he's
mm-hmm.
talking about like he said an average of 40 a year that he can confirm actually disappeared. It could be twice that. It could be much more than that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so like what there's some really weird ones in there too. I felt like with Flight 19, there's enough sort of like confusion surrounding it, I guess, that you could kind of argue like different things might have happened. Maybe they were genuinely confused about their location, flew the wrong direction, had to ditch into the ocean. Like there was a lot of confusion in the whole case, a lot of weird ins and outs to the disappearance, right? But some of these are just smack you in the face a little bit, right? Like this one.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1978, more aircraft disappeared in the triangle than in any other year. What's up with the 70s?
Yeah.
some weird shit happening in the 70s. But in 1978, Caribbean Flight 912, a small twin-engine Piper Chieftain, vanished while on final approach to St. Thomas. Okay? The aircraft disappeared at 7:19 p.m., so not even at night, less than 2 miles from the runway. Air traffic control had both radar contact and visual confirmation of the plane. The landing light was clearly visible and steady moments before the disappearance. When the controller looked back, the radar target was gone, and the landing light had vanished. The pilot never responded to radio calls. An emergency search began within minutes. I mean, imagine that they saw it disappear. Within minutes started looking for it, followed by a 4-day Coast Guard search. They knew the exact last location. No wreckage or evidence was ever found. That to me is even wilder than the Flight 19 disappearance.
Yeah.
It was right there.
Yeah, just with how quickly they were able to launch the search too.
Immediately. Yeah.
It seems
like,
you know,
you would find something, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, like, oh, ocean currents would have taken it, whatever, right? I don't know if you realize the Coast Guard has experience looking for wreckage in the ocean. They know how to, right, chart ocean currents and distance and time and set up, like, a search area where these things would likely to be found. 4-day search, they found nothing in that case. It's wild. So something's happening, right? Is it just people like to get lit while they're going through this area? People are getting a little goofy on the stick and they just go down? Hard to say, but there are so many cases of just vanishing.
Did you see that movie? It's a mad world.
Yes.
It's where that pilot's just drinking the old fashions the whole time. I did think about that with one of my stories too.
It's possible, but when you talk about the numbers, I mean, you can't overestimate like human error. Like, you know, people are idiots. People fuck up. Even smart people fuck up. But yeah. Part of it to me is like these equipment failures, right? And weird stuff with like signal interference, right?
Yeah.
This one is fascinating as well. So in February 1980, Beach Baron 58, piloted by student flyer Peter Jensen, vanished after departing St. Thomas for Miami. He reported being just east of Miami, out of fuel and preparing to ditch, but Miami never heard the call. They never heard that call, right? Instead, his distress messages were heard by airliners near Bermuda 1,000 miles away. Weather near Miami was clear, contradicting Jensen's reports of strange clouds and disorientation. Hours later, a tower on Cayce Island heard Jensen request permission to land. Hours later, they heard him, but no aircraft arrived. The plane carried only 5 hours of fuel, but he was heard up to 16 hours after takeoff. No trace of the plane or pilot was ever found.
That's wild. That's weird.
What?
That's a super weird one, yeah.
Strange clouds, even though the weather was clear.
Well, I've got a lot of that in my stuff.
Right? So it's like really quickly I'll say ships, right? I've been covering the airplane stuff. Again, it's easier to track airplanes, so it's like when they vanish, it's like a little more like smackingly obvious, but ships were disappearing in this area. Like there are reliable reports of ships disappearing in this area all the way back to 1780. 1780, dude. And
That's long track record.
so also, right? Sea of Doom, Graveyard of the Atlantic, and Sargasso Graveyard were names given in the 18th and 19th centuries to specific areas in the Atlantic, all of which traverse the modern Bermuda Triangle or are areas sometimes included in its boundaries. So, to be clear, not the triangle itself, but these areas called the Sea of Doom, the Graveyard of the Atlantic, or the Sargasso Graveyard shared some area. They traversed, they intersected with the Bermuda Triangle in some way, way before this was ever identified as a hot zone. And so that applies to like Spanish sailing vessels disappearing in the area. And just there's a long history of weirdness in this whole area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Modern ships disappearing again with the I think it was EPIRB, emergency position indicating radio beacon. Um, just small ships, large ships, no wreckage found, no debris, no bodies. This one, right? In 1967, the cabin cruiser Witchcraft left Miami with 2 people aboard. The boat stayed within 1 mile of shore, right? The owner radioed for help, reporting a minor propeller issue. Coast Guard arrived within minutes and waited for a flare, which was never seen. Minutes they got there. It's only 1 mile off of shore.
Yeah.
And an extensive search was uh, an extensive search covering 1,200 square miles was launched. The boat was equipped with life jackets, floatable cushions, and added flotation. The men were missing but not lost at sea, according to the Coast Guard. What does that even mean?
That is kind of one of those weird details, but it's also kind of crazy that they were had enough propeller problems to report. So what I mean,
And it
they were
says whatever like the interpretation is here, it says minor propeller issue. But I mean they must have not been able to, like if they had a propeller issue, they wouldn't be moving, right?
yeah, I mean, and if it wasn't,
Like
you wouldn't call the Coast Guard if it wasn't a problem.
yeah, true, right? But it's not like the propeller itself, that's not going to sink you for one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Arrived within minutes and saw nothing. Not even a flare, right? I mean, you have emergency flares for a reason, right? And this I'll you know, cap off like these disappearances again, just a fraction of what's in the book, but this one got to me, right? Because on top of all this, the planes, the ships, right? This one happened at a lighthouse. Okay. On land. There is the peculiar mystery of Great Isaac's Light near Bimini. This government lighthouse station was found abandoned in August 1969 when a launch came from Bimini to check on it. The 2 lighthouse keepers, Ivan Major and B. Mollings, were gone, leaving the islet deserted and silent except for the chatter of nearby passing boats over the lighthouse CB radio. Just
Hmm.
gone from the friggin' lighthouse. I've seen the movie Lighthouse, but I don't think that's what happened out there. I'm assuming probably not. But what? So, not limited to people traveling. These two guys just minding their own business, manning the lighthouse.
Yeah.
What did it to them? Was it the fog?
Yeah. Well,
Did the
that's
fog
kind of
get them?
one of those things. We don't know what did it. But yeah, that goes right into some of the stories that I've got. And I've got, some that are in the Bermuda Triangle area and some that are outside of it. But the and then the main one I've got too is going to be covering Bruce Gernon's story here, and he's the author of some of the books that I've got.
And
So yeah, the
obviously, he
fog.
wrote a book, so he didn't totally disappear. So
Yeah.
this
Well,
is
and
like it's good to look at people who didn't disappear and for maybe some indication of what might be happening out there, right?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, so this one's kind of a short one, but it's and that's kind of one of the things. So a lot of the people have come to him because he's been so outspoken about his experience. So he's gotten a lot of reports from other people about certain where their experience related to his or reminded them of his experience. And so they've heard a lot of different but similar things. And so yeah, I'm gonna be covering this
Like
one.
inspired by his account, like putting it
Yeah,
out there.
they got also reminded of their own
Yeah.
account, or like, yeah, just
I took a quick glance at his account. It's pretty wild.
mm-hmm.
It was covered in this book, but again, there are a lot of cases covered in this book, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
in detail.
So one of the guys that came to him he was just a kid in 1976, and he was hanging out with his dad over the summers, and I guess his dad sailed around the Caribbean. I didn't get into much detail. That sounds like a nice life though. Um so he was
I
flying
wouldn't mind.
from the Caribbean to Miami on a commercial air flight at, roughly kind of their normal level, about 35,000 feet. Clear skies as far as the eye could see. And then all of a sudden, the plane is enveloped in this yellow mist and this kind of
Gross.
eggnog fog. That's what we had heard about in that video we watched a couple weeks back.
The
And
eggnog
so
aspect.
the eggnog
That's a
fog,
thick fog if you're comparing it
it's
to eggnog.
a thick fog. So they said after about 30 minutes, they kind of escaped from the fog, and everyone kind of noticed that their watches had stopped working. It was 1976, so a lot of people had different watches. And the captain actually came on the speakers and told everybody to set their watches. I think it was, correct the time. Yeah, 20 minutes ahead. I think they had to move their watches, so
Weird.
they'd maybe just stopped and lost 20 minutes
To happen to like
on.
everyone's watches. That's odd. We don't
And
even
then
have
after
watches
they,
anymore, right? How do you know when you're missing
yeah,
time at this point?
yeah, it just gets resynced to the cell phone anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, after they landed, I guess they taxied this plane around to the back of the airport, and then people came up and were kind of scanning it with Geiger counters. And the guy says he asked somebody, and they said, sometimes planes disappear from radar in this
Sure.
area, and they'd check him after that. I don't know. So, so yeah, this guy's flight landed. Everybody was good, but they had a weird experience where apparently they lost they lost him on radar, and they also
That
were
would
enveloped in a crazy yellow fog mist, and lost their
that
watches
sort of
time for.
attitude would come up in some of these accounts, like in some of the details of it. It's like, oh yeah, Bermuda Triangle. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? It's like man, okay.
And so then I got another one here that it's still in the Bermuda area. This one was taking place on a. This guy Hector and I think his friend Daniel were looking for a place to chill one evening in 2007, and they started walking around this golf course. I guess it's in one of these older neighborhoods in Miami. And they were just walking along. They say near the ninth hole, and they claim have been stone cold sober. But so they stopped, and all of a sudden, one of them felt. He says he felt a hand slip inside his head and start pressing his
Ooh.
brain. His friend reported seeing sparks kind of in his vision, just flashing all over the place. And so they were like, oh, okay, what's going on? I don't really like this. And they kind of
And
both felt.
sober at the time, you mentioned.
That's what they claim. And they had different sensations, but neither of them wanted to continue on this walk. But that's when they noticed that there was this thick fog. They said it was about 300 feet away, and it didn't feel like there would be fog that night. To this how the story goes. And so, but they see this fog up ahead, and then all of a sudden, they kind of noticed that it started making a beeline right for him. It was rolling up and down the little hills on the golf
Ooh.
course, and it got to about 100 feet away from them. And as they started to back away from it, the fog also kind of backed away from them. And so I kind of imagine, it's like that Homer Simpson gif, but it's a fog
Yes.
cloud just kind of going back. It's like, oh, you noticed me, so I'm gonna go away. But so then they stopped to notice that there was no animal sounds. They couldn't hear any insects or bugs. And then they heard a loud kind of screeching. They said it had an electronic tinge to it, kind of like a
Huh.
mix of natural and digital sounds. And it seemed like it came from 300 feet away, and then another closer, and then another one right at their feet. Now the fog
Weird.
was coming back for them faster than before, and poof, they were in this electronic fog. It's they
Electronic
said it felt
fog.
they said it felt as if a wall of electricity hit them. All the hairs on their body kind of stuck up and hurt, kind of like they had all been turned into needles. And they said it was, you could almost feel it, that it was like this eggnog colored fog. It was dense and viscous. And so the one,
I mean,
excuse me,
I've
saw
been inside
flashes.
fog. I've never like thought to describe it as eggnog. Maybe one night, but that's a thick fog is my point. That
Yeah,
is wild.
I've had some thick fogs, but that seems eggnog. Some may have been close, but I don't think
It's a
anything. I
little
don't think I've ever
excessive.
experienced anything like this.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so the one that saw the flashes in his eyes, he screamed, and the pair kind of made their way back to this path, and the fog kind of dissipated. They made it to their car and looked back, and they say the fog was coming for them again. But luckily, they were able to speed away in what I can only imagine was maybe a Pontiac Tempest, a GMC Typhoon, or possibly a Toyota Mist, but that would be surprising because they were mostly only available in Japan.
Man, like yeah, to be driving a mist through the fog. If only. Um,
So
so
that one
yeah,
that one's interesting, because they experience this fog, they get enveloped in it, they both start having pretty bad effects from it, and it scares them. If it sounds like it physically scares them, and then
it
they run away. And
sounds like there's a suggestion that there was some intention behind it. Maybe an intelligence, but at least like it was coming after them, how they put it.
and in some of these so I'll get into this more later, but yeah, the electronic fog, that's something that this Bruce Gernon guy, he experienced in his experience, and he's got kind of a whole scale of fogs in his book. So
So
we'll chat about that in a little bit.
he personally experienced it, and that's what sort of brought these other stories
Yeah.
to light.
And actually, maybe it would be good to go over it now, so then you can kind of think about it in the rest of these stories, because I've got two more short ones and then the main one. But yeah, if we kind of go over some of the fog a little bit more, thoroughly now, then we can like think about what level we were at in each one of these stories.
The levels of fog. Let's do
So
it.
he's got this group, Bruce Gernon's scale of electronic fog. And so level one is just formation. The fog appears and begins, and it starts attaching itself to aircraft. So usually it'll form around
Huh.
unusual cloud structures. It looks like normal fog, but behaves unnaturally. It starts to cling to the aircraft's surfaces, but no major issues from it, really. So then he's got this other one where the fog sticks to the aircraft and becomes electrically active. So this is level two. It's adhesion and static charge. The fog remains attached even when leaving the cloud. Aircraft becomes enveloped in a uniform gray haze. Static electricity sensations or visual distortions may appear, and early interference with radios or navigation begins. So this is when it starts getting a little more serious, and I think has a lot more of, I mean, at least a little more of the kind of electronic
And that's
malfunctions
level
and
that's
the
level
stuff.
2. Sounds like some of these pilots from some of the cases I was going over could have had a level 2 fog involved.
Yeah. So level three is instrument disruption. So the fog's electrical resonance interferes with avionics. The compass begins spinning or becomes unreliable, radio static or complete communication loss, altimeter, airspeed, or directional indicators behave erratically, and the pilot loses reliable situational awareness.
Okay.
Fog density increases and visibility drops to near zero.
I think some of the people listening have experienced a level 3 fog before.
Yeah.
you know? You know what I'm saying.
Visibility drops to near zero. Yeah. Hard to wake up in the morning with that one.
yeah.
So there's a couple more levels here. Level 4 gets even more intense. Spatial distortion. The fog creates a tunnel or distortion effect around the aircraft. Aircraft appear to be inside a rotating or spiraling tunnel of cloud fog. Perception of motion becomes distorted. Possible sense of acceleration without engine changes.
Huh.
Instruments may freeze or show impossible readings. Pilots may feel pulled or guided through the tunnel.
Okay.
And then the level 5 is linear displacement, space time anomaly. And so this is the most extreme stage. Gernon's aircraft experienced apparent time distance compression. And so that's what he's explaining. We'll get into
Yeah.
that more later. Uh,
He's like, my
so this
fog
has,
was level 5 fog, bro.
yeah.
Step up to level
that's
5.
that's as good as it. That's the highest it goes, man. So this is a sudden or unexplained jump in position, linear displacement, time travel drastically reduced. Fog dissipates instantly once the anomaly ends, and instruments return to normal, and no conventional meteorological explanation.
okay.
So these are his different levels of the electronic fogs, and yeah, I think we can think about a lot of the stories that you were telling. In some of the earlier stages, they did have, or some of them were reporting some of these kind of whatever
And
characteristics of the electronic fog.
it seems like he's pulled together enough reports where he needed or felt motivated to create like a classification system, right? That's, you know, there has to be at least
Yeah,
5 reports to have 5 levels, I guess.
I mean, he's got kind of like you were talking about with the disappearances. I think it's like at the back of one of these books, but it's just like a list of a bunch of different, gives a year and then yeah, it's like just a list of different different encounters with electronic fog and disappearances. So now we can go back to some of these stories here. And so this one's a real short one, and it's actually from jolly old England.
Ooh.
And it was a family called the Days family. So, like Days. So, of course, I had to call it the Days in a Days.
Ooh.
And so they
Back in
were
the
returning
days.
home one evening to, to their home. I think it's called Avely in Essex, England. They were driving along and they encountered a localized patch of glowing green mist. As they entered, the car radio started sparking as if it was about to catch fire. They also felt a bump as if the car had been lifted off the road. Just as quickly as they entered the fog was gone and they were closer to home and had lost 2 hours.
Ooh,
So
missing time.
yeah, this one's kind of interesting because then they went to hypnotist kind of person and they got a regression and they did tell a story of a alien abduction. But
Okay.
upon further research, it kind of seems like maybe that may have been one of the ones, a less reliable option. And so maybe they just experienced this electronic fog and like a
Was
time
it
distortion based on it.
was it a hypnotist that had a lot of results of alien abduction?
They didn't say, but they just kind of said the researchers who initially put forward that idea even kind of came around to maybe thinking that
I
that
am
wasn't the story.
skeptical of the hypnotic regression. It seems like linked to a lot of like, possible like lends itself to hypnotic suggestion, like implanting stories or at least guiding people's stories down that path. But it's hard to say. I haven't
Did
ever
you
felt it necessary to recover memories that way myself.
did you ever watch the series Hellier?
No. Hellier.
So it was on Amazon, and it's like I think it's a pretty good investigation into kind of paranormal stuff. But in part of that series, I forget even which season it was. There's multiple seasons. And this is kind of apart from the main topic of that show, which I'll link it to or whatever. Um, but they get somebody to basically do it on purpose, where they put him under hypnosis and they hypnotically suggest alien abduction, and it screwed the guy up. It screwed him
Man,
up. He was not. It was not an easy recovery for him. They said like, and the people who put it on felt bad about it. I mean, they, all signed
did
paperwork
he
and
so I'm
and
guessing he didn't know that that was their intention.
I think they did. I think that
Really,
they
but
all signed
still
on to it as part of like an experiment to see how
wild.
easily it could be done. And I don't know, I think
Becomes
some people
like
are
total
probably easier than
recall.
others, but
Like, am
yeah.
I in it right now? Or it's like that's wild. I've like am I have some anxiety surrounding the idea of even like, I don't know, some of the like self-improvement hypnosis. It's like,
Yeah.
like curb overeating through hypnosis. It's like, what if I walk away thinking that I was abducted by aliens? Like, no thanks.
And so I've got just a couple more here. This one's another short one. This one's Catalina Catatonia. So Alan, he said he was an electrical mechanical engineer. He worked in the biomedical field, and so this guy is getting most of these reports firsthand. Some of them, like that last one, I think is one he extracted from another person's book. But this one, they met with him and they talked to the person, and I think he found his report pretty credible. So he's in the biomedical field, and he's out on a sailboat with some colleagues. They're doing some fishing and just hanging out. And so this was October 5th, 1995. They went sailing and fishing. They left about 8:15 a.m. Then about 9:30 they anchored and started to prepare their fishing gear. Soon the group noticed kind of a heat mirage type effect about 50 feet from the boat. everybody saw this shimmering, thought it was kind of odd, but didn't think too much of it. But this, this heat mirage effect, that doesn't happen in the water. It doesn't happen. I think this
Oh,
is in
right.
October. It doesn't,
It's
it doesn't
like
happen usually first thing in the morning because they're talking. It's 9:30 a.m. It's not
it's
even.
the heat emanating from the ground, not from like water when like
Mm-hmm.
disperse heat in the same way. It absorbs heat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So everybody kind of gets mesmerized by this shimmering, and all of a sudden it kind of just forms into this rectangular cloud of fog. And so then it's kind of out in front of their boat and it starts like spinning in front of them. Not very fast, it doesn't sound like, but it kind of forms into kind of more of a oval and it's like spinning in front of them. And it starts to kind of spiral. And they say the sky got kind of dark and it kind of seemed like it was just creating some of these electronic effects. And so it sounded like the people got kind of threatened and they decided it was best to get the heck out of there. And so they pulled up anchor, went back to shore. Um, and when they got back to the marina, it was already 3 p.m. and everybody in the group felt nauseous and kind of in a daze. And so somehow, like at least 3 hours, they think were just kind of missing.
Yeah, it's interesting,
So
like that in itself is usually associated with like abduction phenomenon or like the reports of like missing time, like UFO, but also fog. Next time someone
yeah,
tells me they're missing time, I'm gonna say, was there a fog?
yeah. Well, and it just kind of goes to show you like what would happen if they stuck around or drove into it, or
Right.
who knows? Maybe they'd be disappearing.
Yeah. Electronic fog, dude. And so this is all stuff that Bruce Gernon has pulled together,
Yeah, it's all
right?
stuff that he's pulled together. And so yeah, he's got a couple books, The Fog and Beyond the Bermuda Triangle. I think he even has maybe another one. He's been in a lot of documentaries. He's talked about it over the years. So his story happened December 4th in 1970. He was 23 years old and he was flying his plane with his father and his dad's business partner. They were kind of developers looking for a place in the Bahamas to start kind of a resort or something. And so I guess they had gone to Andros Island, which is one of the biggest islands down there, but it's not necessarily one of the most popular
Okay.
places to visit. And there is also this big AUTEC kind of facility down there that is basically kind of like a secret Navy type location.
Huh. Watch out for that Navy, dude.
So they were scouting locations to kind of build a place, and Bruce was flying the three of them, and his dad too was also an instrument rated pilot and a good pilot. Um, but Bruce became the main pilot. I think he just he likes flying. So the
Again,
flight
what
they
a
were on that
life,
day,
right? Like,
yeah, I know. Well, it says he was working construction at the time, but now he teaches people how to fly. It looks like so.
okay.
Um, so yeah, this was probably the 13th flight they said to and from this location that they had gone on. And so I kind of wondered, is this
Oh,
lucky 13?
yeah.
Hmm?
But also, like, they've done this. We've done this. We've been here. We've done this flight.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so
Yeah.
they went out there and they were kind of waiting around till about 3 in the afternoon because of rain. So they had wanted to take off a little bit earlier, but so they took off about 3 p.m. They were flying a Beechcraft Bonanza A36. It's apparently a high performance aircraft and is pretty well known to be pretty. You can kind of see it here.
That's it.
See
Yeah.
that little
Okay.
plane there. And this is the flight
Prop
path
plane, but
to,
like a high performance prop plane.
yeah.
Like,
They said it's, holds about 6 people, but anyway, we could pop that back up in a minute. Get back to the story here. So yeah, they're flying a Beechcraft Bonanza A36. The Bonanza is apparently a high-performance aircraft and not the name of some kind of rave festival. So they were planned to fly out earlier in the day, as I said, but they waited till about 3 due to weather. So they'd been flying. They took off. They were flying about 10 minutes, and the rain had stopped, and they were reaching the northwest corner of Andros Island. Bruce had been flying low due to the cloud cover, but about this time they started to ascend to their 10,000-foot level that they intended to travel. About then, Bruce noticed a lenticular cloud. These are the ones that kind of look like flying saucers. A lot of times you'll see them right above mountaintops in pictures.
lenticular, like the prints that, like, you change the angle of it and it changes
Yeah,
the image, right?
yeah,
Lenticular.
yeah. And so usually these clouds are not that big of a deal, just whatever. The only thing weird about this one is it was lower in altitude than this cloudy cloud is normally forms at. So they reported to the Miami flight control, and the Miami said that the skies were mostly clear for the remainder of the flight. So they continued climbing up to their 10,500-foot level. They passed over this lenticular cloud, and basically as they passed over it, it sounds like it kind of almost exploded into a storm cloud. And so it actually kind of would boost his plane. It would like catch up to them, and it would boost the plane, and it would catch up to him again, and it would boost the plane. And they said this happened like 7 times.
Huh.
And so they were feeling pretty shook up.
Like, it's like they're leaving it behind, but then it catches up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
And so they're feeling pretty shook up, but kept flying up to 11,500 feet, and they escaped the turbulence caused by this cloud kind of pushing them. And looking back, they noticed that, yeah, that small cloud had exploded in size horizontally and vertically. And so it was also like stretching out on either side of them, like 10 miles, they said. But luckily, skies looked pretty good ahead. And so they just continued flying and weren't too worried about it. And that's what I imagine, the 2 old guys sit back and they pour themselves old fashioned, and the young guy keeps flying, and they're just
spark up
chilling.
a spark up a cigar.
I mean, it's the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Probably dressed like this.
Yeah. There you go. That in fact belonged
Yep.
to Bruce Gernon at one point.
So, some of this next part gets pretty action packed. So I'm gonna
Okay.
kind of run through it, but
I'm
yeah, just
strapped in.
I kind of like thinking about it like it's a movie. So actually, I had a cold, so let me cough real quick here.
It's the fog. Again. Fog strikes again.
Could be. Fog strikes back. So yeah, so this gets action packed, and I like to think of it, since we're on your channel here, like it could be a movie sequence. So these 2 guys cheers. They're like, to prosperity in Andros Island or whatever, and they look ahead and
Big
they're like,
shots.
oh shit, there's another cloud up ahead. And it looks just like the one they escaped. And then so basically these 2 clouds, you got one reaching around them from the back, another one's doing it from the front, and they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do? And they're not flying into these kind of clouds is kind of sketchy, especially at the
Yes.
level they're at. I guess that is the 10,000-foot level is one of the most dangerous places for a plane to be at,
Okay.
like this. And so they basically don't have any choice but to fly into the plane, or fly the plane into the cloud. And they get in there and they realize, oh, this was not a good idea. They start seeing bright flashes going off all around them, and they're not seeing any lightning, but clearly this is an electrical storm. So they make a huge U-turn. They get out of there, and then basically they're in the center of that thunderstorm donut. So they're, in the donut hole in the eye of the storm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a gigantic thunderstorm encircling them. And so he looks ahead and he sees a tunnel in the clouds where they haven't quite come together yet. And so he sees it and he thinks it's like a mile wide at first, and it looks like it's like 10 miles long. And so he flies into it,
God
and
damn.
as he flies into it, it keeps kind of closing in till it's like 1,000 feet, I think, when he enters it. And he says, as we flew into the tunnel, they were startled by the strange spiraling lines embedded in the interior of the tunnel walls. And so, like, the tunnel walls were kind of glowing with the sunlight, but then these kind of storm cloud stripes were kind of going through the tunnel and it twisting.
Sort of like maybe what he's referring to as lenticular, or like that's part of it, huh? Like,
Well, the
interesting.
lenticular clouds are actually like a flying saucer. Like,
Oh, okay.
they're they actually are like a little pancake, and sometimes they'll be due to the air, like coming up the top of a mountain. It'll just be like a little. It looks like a flying saucer because of the way it's shaped. Um,
Huh.
so these ones is just kind of this tunnel, and I think this is a lot of what he's talking about with his scale. Like this, I think is even
Right.
not quite
So
the
far, not.
level 5.
Yeah.
This is level 4, but the fog creates a tunnel or distortion effect around the aircraft.
But we're getting to level 5, I imagine.
And so, okay, get me back to my place here.
There's like on the
And
instrument dial on the plane, there's like a fog meter. It's like we're at level 4.
so this tunnel now appeared to be 1 mile long, and it only took 20 seconds for them to fly through. But all the instruments were malfunctioning. The compass was spinning counterclockwise, and dare I say, there was an anomaly detected?
What? No, we need like Pee Wee Herman, like word of the day. Like, anytime Anomaly comes up.
So the tunnel was still kind of closing in and nearly touched the wingtips as they escaped. This is when they felt weightlessness. It was brief but noticeable. When all the instruments malfunctioning, yeah, so with all the instruments malfunctioning, Bruce Sr. could not make out where they were. So the energy in the plane was tense. They started calling traffic control because they couldn't quite figure out where they were. And transponders were new in 1970, but this plane was kind of, so it was 1971, and this one did have a transponder on it, and the air traffic control could not locate them. And so, like, I think the dad's kind of like yelling at the traffic controller, like, "What the hell are you talking about? You can't find me out here. We're blah blah blah. We should be out here." And then finally, they come on and they're like, "Oh, we see you, and you're coming right into the Miami airspace." And so
Huh.
now they had only been flying about 32 minutes. I think they say this where they were here, like it shouldn't have taken them any less time than 47 minutes.
Okay.
But so they somehow made this, let's see, I think 97 miles, basically 100 miles unaccounted for. And so they basically flew past Miami, flew up to where they were going, I think in Palm something or other up there. And so yeah, the plane has a top speed of 195 miles an hour, but basically they made a 250-mile flight in 47 minutes. They experienced all these crazy weather phenomenon and had a hell of a ride.
Right on.
So that's kind of when it goes back to the Bruce Gernon scale of electronic fog, and
It's interesting because, right, there's three of them in the plane: Bruce and his dad
Yeah.
and the other guy.
Hmm.
And so I'd be intrigued to see like if there were any interviews with like, the other witnesses, but I imagine we'd at least have heard something about it if they did not agree with the facts of what happened. Right.
Yeah. Well, okay, and so we can look up like basically they're old.
Yeah.
So Bruce was 23 in 1971. So, whatever that makes him now. And in some of these pictures, I'm sure we could actually find him online too. But his dad looks fairly old at that point in time, and his friend looks kind of old. So at this point, I'm not sure they would be around, maybe. But
I'm
yeah, you
sure
would think that.
if he had entirely made it up, there'd be awkward conversation over like Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah,
Like, by
yeah.
the way, that bullshit you published. No, like
Well, and so
it
he
seems
talked
more
about.
credible for the fact that there were other witnesses, basically.
Yeah. And so he talked about like coming back and kind of like coming to grips with what had happened to him. And he started doing an exercise where basically every day he makes a point of thinking about this situation that happened to him and remembering what had happened. And so, there's probably, memory's fallible,
It
but,
is. And it's also something
he
we
has,
don't fully understand, right? Even like, uh modern science can't completely explain the nature of memory and how it
yeah.
works in the brain.
Well, and I mean, so I have this thing, I think it's aphantasia, where you can't really visualize things.
Oh,
Um,
okay, like visually,
like
right? Like
yeah,
that's
like
like
when if you say,
I've heard of this.
think of a basketball or whatever. I can think of a basketball, but I don't see that in my head. I know it's orange. I know it's got these goofy lines on it. I know it's
But
about
it's
this
the
big,
actual like visual picture is
but
not
I
like
don't see a picture of it in my head. And so
yeah.
memory works different for me. It'll drive my wife crazy. Like we'll, go somewhere, talk to
I can
somebody,
see
and
that.
she's like, "Oh, do you remember like, or I'm trying to explain, oh, we talked to that person, and she's like, what were they wearing? I forget, and I'm like, I don't know. Like my memory just doesn't like work like in that same way. So it's
It's funny,
but anyway,
like
we don't.
someone without that issue, like still like someone will refer to like the shoes someone was wearing, and I'm like, I couldn't tell you. I did not notice
Yeah.
what shoes they were wearing. Or even honestly, I've checked myself on this before. Just has come up. I'm like, eye color. Like I'll be talking right at someone, looking them in the eyes even. I like to make eye contact with people. But
Mhm.
then later on ask me what color their eyes were. Couldn't tell you. You know?
Yeah. So memory's fallible, and I don't know like if going over this stuff every day makes it better or worse. You know what I mean?
Are
It
you
seems
just
like that.
remembering the memory at that
Yeah.
point? Like,
But
yeah.
he's been also talking about it publicly for a long time and reporting on it in books, and so I feel like it's as true an account as you can get, and it's an
With a lot of
interesting
these
experience.
like accounts like that get like a lot of the first-hand accounts, people that go on to talk about them in interviews and write books, you got to think about the motivation. Like he wrote a book. Some people would argue like, "Oh, he's in this for the book money." It's like how much money do you think he made off
Yeah.
of publishing this book? But also like you're talking about he had a career and now has a career. He's a flight instructor, and it's like that's not great advertising for your business to be like, I'm the electronic fog guy. It's like the motivation behind it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, why would you go around telling everyone this if it hadn't really happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you know,
so
some
he's
people
been on
do have
document.
like, yeah, some people do have a motivation, but I just don't see it in this case, you know.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so either. He's, he's been in a bunch of documentaries and stuff like that too, but then he talks about going and hanging out at like the Flight 19. They have a Remembrance Day every year, and like so he'll just be there hanging out, and people will come up to him and be like, "Oh, you're the fog guy. I saw you talking about the here's my experience." And so
Okay.
he that's how he gets all these kind of stories. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
pretty interesting putting the two together, like you talking about all the disappearances and then kind of this interesting fog. Or I mean, basically his claims come down to that this is a natural phenomenon, but that science doesn't fully understand it yet, and
sure.
that it can even create essentially a wormhole and like teleport you, you know, who knows
So,
where it could. He got lucky enough that it just teleported him, 40 minutes in the direction he was going.
right.
But
A
maybe
slight
if you go
fold,
to the
a wrinkle in space time rather than full on
Mhm.
fold. Yeah.
But maybe if
um,
he was in a less powerful aircraft, or who
yeah.
knows, he could have been.
And I mean, if it is just natural phenomenon, you know, like the chaos in nature, like if it's like a weather pattern, it you never know what result you're gonna get. Could be
Yeah.
bombarded by it, could just get a light touch. Maybe he was right in that sweet spot where he experienced that much phenomenon, but then like didn't die. I mean, or didn't get sucked into some other realm. But like
Yeah.
that does like that does jibe with what Gian Quasar talked about towards the end of his book. And when I say towards the end of his book, I mean about half of his book or more is going over his theories on why all of this is happening, why and how, both. Um, and so what Bruce Gernon talked about does fit into this broader, there's a much broader scope to what John talks about. And it gets a little wild. So if I could share with you and everyone
Mm-hmm.
what he gets into, I was not prepared for this. So like I said, I went into it. I could tell there was a lot of factual detail in this book. I'm like, cool, I'm with it. Reading through it early on, there's some impressions that get left, an inkling of what he's going to get into later on. But wow. Wow. It's like throwing the high strangeness spaghetti against the wall to see if it's done cooking. Like it is wild. And so obviously there's something going on with electromagnetic
Mm-hmm.
phenomena. Um, there's all of the communications interference, the dashboard instruments, but also like what Bruce Gernon described visually, what was happening, lights in the sky, all of this stuff, right? There's something electromagnetic going on, right? Look at that. But so again, how and why? A little bit of the how, right? Now, this might get anyone who's familiar with this might give you a clue of where we're headed, but the Hutchison effect. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, dude, yeah. So this guy's super interesting. I read this book.
I had never heard of the Hutchison effect.
The
John
so the hunt
Hutchison
for
is who.
Yeah, the hunt for Zero
Yeah.
Point is a great book, which I
Right.
would be super interested in covering. But one of the people they talk about is the Hutchinson guy. Have you seen the
Yeah.
videos?
I have not. I've
They're
looked at
interesting.
photos,
It's
stills.
interesting.
And so if you were to Google the Hutchison effect and look at the Gemini AI search result, This is what it might say, because I did exactly that and I copied it here. But the Hutchison effect is a claimed physics phenomenon involving anomalous effects, anomaly, like levitation, fusion of dissimilar materials, e.g., wood into metal, and spontaneous fracturing or jellification of metals, reportedly achieved by overlapping high voltage electromagnetic fields from equipment like Tesla coils and Van de Graaff generators. Discovered by John Hutchison in 1979, it's described as unpredictable and difficult to reproduce, often involving chaotic interference patterns that defy conventional physics, though some skeptics attribute it to hoaxes or misinterpretation of simple tricks like hidden magnets or upside down cameras. Now, I get that. The first phrase you'll see associated with Hutchison effect online is pseudoscience, right? But the results are crazy if this is to be believed, right? It's been reported it's caused levitation, material fusion like wood sinking into metal without heat, metal deformation, metals bending, twisting, or becoming soft like jelly, material disruption, spontaneous fracturing or melting, sometimes with materials appearing to disappear, and structural changes, alterations to the crystalline structure of metals. And like I said, I've looked at some of the pictures. It looks crazy. Like,
So there's video of it too, and you'll see like this like bar or like a bearing ball like just kind of floating there. And from the reports I've read is that people have seen it. He's been able to reproduce it for people, but you know, you have to take their word for it. But
yes,
that like
I
it's kind of one of these things where he's like twisting all these goofy dials. He's like, you know, just
exactly.
putting a little sprinkle of salt on it here, doing a little dance, like twisting this knob, and then all of a sudden this stuff starts like levitating,
Picture
and like,
mad scientist laboratory, complete with Tesla coils, right? Just shit
and then
sparking
sometimes
off.
it'll just like zoom off and like jam itself into a wall, or yeah, like fuse with different things or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
So that is what he hinges his argument on, is that
Okay.
essentially the natural phenomenon, or is it natural, but the phenomena in the area is creating the Hutchison effect, which is affecting things like Bruce Gernon's plane, uh, transporting it through space, but also causing things to fully disappear, possibly levitate or sink or fall, and possibly fuse with materials, causing wreckage and debris to never be found, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, now, so let's hinge this entire argument on the Hutchison effect. Let's just take it for what it is, you know, take it at face value. Why is it happening here in the world, right? Like, would that sort of be created anywhere where this might happen? Like, anywhere, like, obviously, like, the water is a great conductor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, why wouldn't this be happening all over the planet, all over the ocean? Um, well, let's layer in some Edgar Cayce. Why not? Hutchison
The
effect,
sleeping prophet.
Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. If you don't know, Edgar Cayce is like one of the godfathers of the modern new wave, new age, new age movement. A lot of like the concepts of the new age can be traced back to Edgar Cayce and like Madame Blavatsky and a few other people. But Edgar Cayce was a clairvoyant, um, and responsible for some real wild things where he was supposedly able to accurately diagnose people and their ailments using his clairvoyance. It's really fascinating, verifiable stuff where he did diagnose people and did, help them get better through the power of his mind. I mean, he wouldn't, I think there was some psychic healing in there, but he would like report what he saw and they would go get checked out, and sure enough, that's what's going on, you know.
Hmm.
But so for this, for the case of this discussion, he made a lot of clairvoyant psychic claims. Like more than predicting the future, he would be even looking at the past, but also just, the equivalent of remote viewing, which is another thing we could go into at some point. But
Oh yeah.
he would go into a trance, he would talk about all these things, and there's one of his outliers, one of his strong predictions for the future centers around this area that we're talking about. And so from the book, from Into the Bermuda Triangle, this is what he says about this, is that Cayce actually mentioned a specific island in the Bahamas that he associated with Atlantis. Swing in Atlantis, right? We've got the Hutchison
Mm-hmm.
Effect, Edgar Cayce, Atlantis. He predicted, right, that it says a sunken portion of Atlantis or Pisidia, where a portion of a temple may yet be discovered under the slime of ages of seawater near what is known as Bimini, off the coast of Florida. He predicted that it would be found, that it would rise in 1968, right? That this sunken temple from Atlantis off the coast of Bimini would rise in 1968. So fast forward to September 1968, the Bimini Road was discovered by divers Joseph Manson Valentine, Jacques Mail, and Robert Angove, who found a submerged linear formation of large rectangular limestone blocks near North Bimini Island in the Bahamas, sparking theories that it was part of the lost city of Atlantis or a man-made structure, though most scientists believe it's a natural geological formation. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't know if most scientists believe that, but if you take a look at it online, everyone, the Bimini Road and related
Yeah.
structures out there,
That
it
that is
doesn't.
crazy that it was discovered at the same time when he predicted that.
He predicted. He said something to the effect of it would rise from the water,
Yeah. So,
but that was he accurately predicted when it would be found. But so, like Atlantis is not something he made up. It was actually talked about. Like, so Plato's dialogues first told the story of a prehistoric civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which was the Straits of Gibraltar. Um, Plato did not claim it as a Greek origin, but rather openly explained how it came from an even earlier period of knowledge, which the Egyptians were still the custodians. So ancient knowledge of a lost civilization
mm-hmm.
called Atlantis. But so Cayce's saying it's right there. It's off the coast of Florida. Anyway, right? He also said this. He talked about novel electromagnetic power sources, electromagnetic, of that prehistoric age. As for a description of the manner of construction of the stone, we find it was a large cylindrical glass, as would be termed today, cut with facets in such manner that the capstone on top of it made for centralizing the power or force that concentrated between the end of the cylinder and the capstone itself. And so basically he's describing ancient Atlantean power crystals. That's what we're
Okay.
getting at here.
So, but I I sent this article in our chat in that when we first decided to do the Bermuda Triangle thing.
Yes.
And it's this
Yes.
article from the debrief, and they talk about that there is like the tectonic stuff in that area is different, and it's like in the fact that there's actually like I want to say it's like a bedrock kind of
That
pushed up
I was
through
gonna
the
say.
mantle. And so I mean, in a way, like
Right
that
there, though,
almost,
specifically Bimini Island and the surroundings. Like that
yeah.
is right
And
where
so
it's different than most island formations in that respect. Is what this is
yeah,
a scientific article you're referring to. That's like
yeah.
an
And
actual legitimate like geological find in that
it's also
area.
just interesting to think about it in terms of what Cayce is saying, and where a crystalline form is pushes up and it's got a capstone on it
Right.
and it creates a power source. I mean, that's
So
almost what's being described.
even like yeah, even the island itself, right? But
Yeah.
so the suggestion being, right, that submerged or buried Atlantean power crystals are creating intense electromagnetic effects in that area, which are then creating the Hutchison effect.
Hmm.
Right.
Making them all disappear.
So I love how much that makes sense. Like, I mean, like, as in, if you stand back from it and you don't pick apart every detail of it, it's like, I get that. Maybe that is
Yeah.
what's happening. There's more to what he describes in his book. So, just quickly, I know we've done a lot on this. You mentioned 0 point energy that's involved, right? That the so quickly 0 point energy is described as a universal background field that sustains all matter and charge. It may be a link between gravity, time, and space. Disturbing this field could neutralize gravity locally, right?
Hmm.
um Referring both to like the Hutchison effect, but also the instances of, right, UFOs and USOs, unidentified submerged objects. There's been a lot of reports in that area. Um, I mentioned the search crews for Flight 19 seeing unexplained lights in the sky. So as far back as that, it's been recorded in the 40s in that area. USOs, there
I
were
mean,
some real wild sightings in the reports too, which I didn't even bring up.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they talk about a bunch of the UFO stuff in some of these books too, and I didn't even really touch on that. Obviously I was kind of
it's
focusing on fogs, but
it's a major can of worms to open, especially this late
it's
in the
interesting.
show.
It's interesting. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so he argues, right, that UFOs and USOs are frequenting the area, drawn like powered by 0 point energy, drawn by the electromagnetic properties of the area,
Hmm.
right? But further than that, follow me with this real quick. I'll just spit it out. Ancient man supposedly lived much longer than we do today. Their lifespan was longer. This is like there's there's mention of that in the Bible, people living for 1,000 years, people living for hundreds of years, you know. There are lots of other references to that in ancient cultures, people living long lifespans, right? He posits or puts forward that ancient human earthbound civilizations went and colonized other planets, went out into the universe, and have now returned to the location where they were once based, the former site of Atlantis, right? And are taking advantage of the buried technology at that site to both like power their ships and enable their navigation to and from the area, right? So not, well, technically extraterrestrial, but not of alien origin. Humans who have left the planet and returned to the seat of their former empire.
Yeah. Well, and aren't there some of the bigger, so like the Earth's gravity is like almost the same all over, but there's some areas where it's a little less and some areas where it's a little more.
True.
I think near there is one of the places where it's the lowest gravity detected. And I mean, maybe if, these ships are working on gravity somehow or in some other way can affect that, maybe it just makes more sense for them to always be near that location if possible.
I didn't put it in my notes, so I don't know the exact explanation too, but it's also one of the areas. There's more than one area on the planet like this, but it's one of the areas where like a magnetic compass doesn't point to true magnetic north.
Hmm.
There's something
Yeah,
about
just
it.
it just spins
It's,
around.
it's off somehow. And it's like
Okay,
there, it's like pointing to some other point on the globe when you're in this area. I forget the exact explanation. It's
that's
like
interesting too.
something that's been observed in multiple places, but um so yeah, I mean, with this book we can really put it to rest, right? I mean, like Edgar Cayce, told us that this would happen. Aliens are attracted to the area, inadvertently causing uh you know the Hutchison effect with their retro futuristic technology, causing
Yeah.
things like electronic fog.
Well, what if the fog is just a byproduct
Exactly, dude.
of all these different kind of.
Zap the ocean with enough crystal energy, you're gonna get a fog, right?
Dude, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So I think we made it all make sense, dude. The Bermuda Triangle,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I think so. Do we got it figured out, guys?
I think so.